Hi, welcome back to Deep Images. We are still making our way through this incredible series, Strange Love Stories. So, if you're coming in late, the title kind of speaks for itself. It is films that deal with very unconventional or taboo or shocking or doomed romances between two characters in the film. And they can be of different races, genders, species from each other. Um, but we're going to explore why it's compelling to us and why it is romantic, even though it's very unconventional. So, but we're re-recording it, so I'm doing a remastered version for you guys because I love you guys. It didn't come out the way we wanted the first time. So I'm Henry Covert. This is my co-host Elijah Butler, and
Hey,
subbing in for co-host Rhiannon Clark. I told her I'd give her a shout out. She is not feeling well today. She's very busy. She will be back soon for the show. And if you're watching, you've probably already seen a lot of the stuff that's featured her lately and featured Elijah. So, very happy with the way that part of the show's going. We got several layers to the show and more stuff coming, like the Extreme Film Symposiums are coming back, and Kirsty McQueen, aka Sensory Stowers, is coming back to the show. So, pretty excited. So, let's get into this movie here. Today, we're going to look at one that we have talked about before. I have to actually cheat a little bit. Um, I have watched this movie a bunch. It's called Titan, and it's by Julia Ducorneau, who did Raw, which was kind of a cult, you know, small scale foreign horror film, French Belgium co-production, which is the same with Titan. So let me tell you a little bit of basic stuff about Titan, refresh myself and you. Um, Julia Ducorneau wrote and directed it. It was released in 2021. It played a couple weeks here in Charlotte, North Carolina. I did see it in the theater for the first day, and I actually played it 1 week. And I saw it the first day, and it was like, wow, what the hell? Um, I had seen Raw. I liked Raw, but this is like a vast of evolution. It's raw, like raw, and it's very uncompromising, but it's on a higher scale. It's got really epic kind of music and just extremely well crafted cinematography, and it's much more graphic visually. Raw is just kind of like, okay, she's a vegetarian who becomes a kind of a cannibal. So
yeah, it
there's
kind of leads up to that.
yeah,
Builds up to that.
you saw that one, right?
Yeah, I
So
saw it wrong.
So there's some shots that are kind of whoa, but in Titan, it's like almost nonstop transgressive cinema. You don't know what's going to happen next. Anything can happen, and it does. I've said this a lot about foreign cinema, but I gotta give it to them. That happens so often in European and Asian cinema, where you're going through the movie and then it's like a different movie all of a sudden, or something insane happens. And Hollywood
Yeah,
films are much more structured and pulling towards a certain direction, which is fine. That's a fine kind of storytelling, but it can be bland in the wrong hands, and a lot of Hollywood stuff is bland, unfortunately. Some isn't. Um, but the French are on the cutting edge. The new French extremity stuff from the early part of the millennium is still kind of bearing fruit. I think Julie Ducournau kind of came along at the end, toward the end of that wave, off that wave, and she's an incredible person to carry on that legacy. This film stars Agatha Roussel. Never heard of her. She is an amazing actress, and she's an amazing physical actress. We've talked on the show about physical acting, and C.F. Roberts, the co-host of our show, has talked a bit about Grotowski, the Eastern Bloc guy who pioneered some of these techniques of physical acting that are just like totally over the top and just gut wrenching. We're using your whole body, your every muscle to express these emotions. We have reviewed actually Chuck, that's CF Roberts. Chuck and Justin and I did a little piece on Possession, which is one of the kind of crowning achievements of that kind of.
that's one of my all-time favorites in the horror genre. I
I
love that
wish you had
movie.
been able to attend with us. Yeah, you'll like this. The three
Did
of
you
us.
hear that? Did you hear that? I guess there's like a rumor going around that it's getting a remake.
Yes, I did hear that because I was dipping back into it. I was
I
like,
don't know how you can remake something like that. Like,
no, I mean, I can't think of really any actress that would be up. The only actress I can kind of think of that would be up to it would probably be like Charlotte Gainsbourg, somebody who's worked with Lars von Trier. Because the Antichrist to me is a modern day possession.
Yeah.
It's kind of a continuation of those themes and that dynamic with those two characters and this female energy and this just intensity. Antichrist is a lot more graphic than Possession, but Possession is wild. Possession is one of my favorites too. The three of us discussed it, and in that context, we were talking about this kind of that's kind of what this Agatha Roussel lady brings to this movie all the way through. And so, bear in mind, this is a French female director and writer, an auteur, literally in this case, literally French, an auteur, who is using her alter ego of this woman playing the character Alexia, who is later known as Adrienne. We'll get into that. Alexia is kind of this expression of there's many ways you can take it. I've seen the movie several times now, and I haven't settled on the message, quote unquote, that Julia is trying to convey. And I've even watched a festival interview with Agatha and Vincent London, the co-star, and Julia, in a roundtable, and I still am not quite sure. I think I know what she was going for. So let me talk about what this is kind of about. Um, the intro is a young girl. Well, the intro is a young girl, and she's basically kind of acting up in the backseat of her father's car. He's a doctor. They're in the middle of traffic on the freeway, and she's humming, and he's listening to some country song, and then not a French song for sure, very American song, and then the camera goes down into the entrails of the automobile and it concentrates while the credits are going. It concentrates on the whirring within the automobile, and then comes back into her, and she's mimicking it. She's like, mm-hmm. And she starts like kicking the back of his seat. She's just all energized by this car ride, and of course he's going nuts. And then she starts looking out the back window, and he freaks out, turns around, and they slam into a guardrail. So unfortunately, her head is what slams into the window.
Uh,
So that part's not too graphic, but it's still crunching. But what follows next is pretty wild. They do manage to save her, and they have to repair her by putting a titanium plate in this side of her head. That's going to be
mhm.
my right side, and over her ear, and it's where there's all this scar tissue around it in this kind of weird design. It's kind of cool. And then there's just you see the metal. Now, of course, as she grows up, skin grows over it, so there's a thin layer of skin there. But that insignia, that sigil on her head, is still permanently there. Uh, she's wearing a halo, those things that stabilize your head. And they're like, the mom's like, is the plate going to move? And they're like, no, no, it will not move. It's like part of her. And when they go out to the car to go home, she runs up to the car and she puts her head in the part of the metal and it touches the window and she just kind of takes it in and then she kisses the window. So there's already this kind of idea there's a symbiosis between human and machine, right? And so she's already empathetic with automobiles and metal. So now she's kind of becoming part of that. So, it's going to veer into that, even though it's going to be done totally differently. It's going to veer into that Cronenberg area or that Tetsuo, the Iron Man kind of area. H.R. Giger biomechanics. This is a body horror movie. It's an extreme body horror movie. And when I say extreme, I don't mean it has tons and tons of self mutilation and, genital mutilation or their whole body decays. It is pretty extreme. And it's, body horror in that Cronenberg tradition, but um, it's very tense. It's very powerful. It's not, there's no real, there's a few comedic relief parts in the movie, but not many. It's pretty intense. I mean, some of them are absurd, but, um, so we flash to this woman now. She's 32 years old, played by Agatha, and she's a dancer in a car show, and she does these dances where she's in this kind of skimpy outfit. The one we see her in is like gold lame, and she's got these crazy wild pattern fishnet stockings and these heels, of course. That's always a fetish. And she's blonde, and her hair sometimes covers her thing, but sometimes she doesn't care. So she just flaunts it. So she pulls it back, and she uses one of those little, whatever they're called, that you stab people with in movies to do her hair. It sticks it in the middle of her bun. I apologize for not remembering what they're actually called. Hair pick, that's
Uh,
not it, but um, you see them in a lot of Asian women with their
yeah, I
buns.
do see them wear those.
So she wears that, but that's key to the story. That's something she always wears. So in a way, she's flaunting her being different, but also carrying that for another reason other than to keep her hair back. So she dances, and the music throughout this movie is great. I have not taken notes of who all it is. It's all in French that I can tell. Some of it's kind of like industrial, kind of metal-ish, but melodic. And then as the movie goes on, there's some like electronic kind of dance stuff. It's always very loud, kind of, because whenever it's played in a space where people are, it's like realistic, like you're in a club. So it's almost obfuscating the dialogue, but not quite. And in this case, it's just consuming. And she does this lengthy, very, very sensual dance and molestation of this automobile, its roof, its hood, and she's all over it, humping it, and she's doing all kinds of things with her groin and hips and pelvis. And she's very agile. She's kind of tall. She's slim. She has a womanly shape, but she is very slim. And she has a very androgynous kind of face, which they use to perfect advantage in this film. Um, because that's kind of what this film a lot of it is about, is androgyny and the blurring of these lines. And also, as a love story, it's a couple of levels and a couple of layers, and it kind of creeps up on you because it's very unconventional. It's very strange. It kind of makes you think, well, what is love? So what we quickly learn about Alexia is that she's a serial killer, and
Okay.
she usually stabs people in the ear to their brain with her hair pick.
Oh my God.
Her favorite, yeah, it's her favorite, or not always in the ear, but that's the quick one. Yeah, sometimes in their face or their eye. A overzealous fan stalks her, kind of follows her out of the venue and to her car, and then like gets her door window down, wants her autograph, kisses her, and tries to get a little more fresh. Tells her he loves her, and she pulls him in
Ah,
and starts French kissing him. But as she's doing that, she pulls the thing out of her hair and jabs it right through his ear into his brain.
that is
And
grotesque.
yes, it is. I mean, it's just goes there and you see the little bubbles of blood, and he falls over. He vomits all over her, and he falls over. It's gross. It's
Man.
not like food vomit. It's kind of like that, like froth, like rabies.
Like kind of like foam and vomit.
Yeah, when you're having like an epileptic seizure or something, you have that foam kind of comes out.
I see.
Think she just kind of leaves him there and goes back home to her family, and so has this little tableau with her family. And now, first time I watched it, I wasn't sure of the relevance of the news bulletins. I didn't know if she was a serial killer. I didn't know how many people she'd killed, because a serial killer technically has killed three people,
Hmm.
at least three people deliberately, and eventually has some kind of pattern. So the news is confirming that there is this serial killer still wanted. She's starting to feel sick, though. So when she's
Yes.
still at the house hanging with her parents, that night. She goes into a garage, at their garage, and it's pretty big. She keeps hearing this loud slamming. It's while she's showering. She comes out and goes into the garage, and she's totally naked. She's dripping with water, and she doesn't even have a towel. And she's kind of like, "What the hell?" And there's the car. One of her dad's cars is thumping up and down. That's what's making the sound, but no one's in it. But it's on. The lights are on. So she goes to the car and she gets in the back seat and closes the door. And then the car starts really buckling. And then you finally see what's going on inside the car. And she has lashed herself into the car with something. I don't know if she had pieces of clothing or ropes. She's holding it like this. And she's basically humping the car, you know.
Oh my.
And she's going kind of to orgasm. And the car is getting more out of control. And she's, like I said, she's already totally naked.
Oh my
And
God.
so it's a little crazy and a little intense. So now she's kind of, I guess, fulfilled her, I don't know if it's fantasy, her destiny to actually,
Depravity.
yeah, to make love with the car itself.
Hmm.
She was wondering if she's pregnant. She picks up with this young lady that she was showering with at the club. She goes to her house. We don't see the arrangements. And She had took a pregnancy test that the girl had there in the bathroom. She had some of her own, and I don't remember if it said negative or positive. You just see her looking at it, and then she took the hair pick and she put it into her vagina, and not up close, but
Oh my
and
God.
that's another tense scene. The acting is just she's like trying to abort it. She doesn't even know.
Oh
You know
no.
what I mean? How are you going to do this? Are you going to just disembowel yourself? You know,
Right.
Uh, so after she had tried that, to no avail, they begin making out. And this girl's kind of giving her a hard time, saying, you haven't been with a woman before, you're not going further enough down. And Alexia's concentrated on her nipples and her nipple piercing, and she keeps pulling the metal ring in between her teeth, and of course that hurts. So
Oh
they
my.
they get into a little. I know it's wincing, deucing. They get into a little quarrel, but then she comes back around to the house, and they try again. So they start making out again. It seems kind of nice. I think the girl is kind of infatuated with her because she's like I said, she's tall and slim, and everyone wants her, and she's hard, implacable. She's hard to figure out because she's so quiet and seemingly angry. I mean, I wouldn't say it's love, but I think this girl is like completely like infatuated and wants to have just sex with her as soon as possible. Whereas Alexia, you don't know if that's her first time with a woman. I doubt it personally. I think the girl was kind of insulting her because she was just impatient about her needs
Hmm.
being met. Um, but you don't get the impression that this is not something really Alexia probably does a lot.
I
Gets intimate
see.
with other humans. It kind of gets a little weird, and so Alexia reverts to type, and she pulls out her little hair pick, and she goes for the girl's ear. Unfortunately, she stabs it right into her face right here. So
Oh.
it's caught right in that bone there, and
Ah, the cheekbone.
it's halfway in. It's kind of hard to look at. And the
Mm.
girl's like, "What the fuck?" She's freaking out. So the music starts getting wild, and Alexia and her are struggling. Alexia just takes the thing out. She's determined to kill her. And then they see the shot. You see the shot from the behind the couch, and their limbs flailing, and eventually the other girl's limbs stop moving, and so there she's killed her second person. So but this then it gets out of control. So there's the dude who lives in this house apparently. He comes downstairs. He's like, "What's going on?" And he's like basically yelling at her, want to know what's happening. She grabs the poker from the fireplace and she hits him over the head with it. Tries to stab him, and then finally gets him down. And she takes a bar stool that's in the kitchen and puts the leg all the way through his mouth. And then you don't see the next part, but you see her struggling until you hear a crack. And then the next time you see him is a little kind of a distant shot. So it's gone all the way through the back and, broke his neck here. That's how much force she used. So he's very, very
Wow.
strong, too. That's another thing. So he's gone. So then this girl, mostly naked girl, is on the stairs and screams, it's apparently her boyfriend. And so, it's like, are they living in a commune? And so she tries to chase the girl. The girl gets away. She goes in this other room, and then all of a sudden, this really tall black man named Juju. He says his name is Juju, but his real name is like Julius or something. But he's like, yeah. She's like, you live here? And she's like, how many of you are there? And he's like, oh, what do you mean? And she's like, never mind. And you're kind of getting this humorous, like, when is she gonna finally be able to kill everybody in this fucking house and get away?
Yeah.
And he kind of flirts with her. He says, she's like, I'm so tired. He said, you can sleep in my bed. And then she's holding the poker, and she actually gets it around his back and takes the tip and jams it through his back. And
Oh.
does it with such force that actually does kill him right away. I don't know if she hits
Does
it.
it like does it like go through his spine?
Yeah, I think it probably goes through his middle of his spine and probably hits like his heart or some vital
Oh
organ.
yeah, that would definitely kill him for sure.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
but it's not the whole. She can't get the bearing on the whole length of the thing from standing this way. So she's got about this much that's behind him, and she just I'm like, damn, she's
Oh,
strong. I guess she kind of uses his body to pull on it to kind of. And
okay.
he falls over, and then she finds the naked girl again, and they start struggling and struggling. And this girl smashes her head into the wall, and leaves a little bloody stain. Of course, it's titanium, so that's the
Hmm.
titanium part that hit the wall. And the girl gets away. And then she splits and she goes back to her parents' home. And her dad sees her through the window coming home. She's very purposeful, and she goes into the garage, same place she had the liaison with the automobile, and she just starts taking his tools off the shelf, and she takes lighter fluid, and she throws some things in a trash can, sets it ablaze. So the whole garage catches fire, and then she runs into the house and up the stairs to where her parents are sleeping. And she opens the door. Her dad is waking up because he's heard something. He'd already been awake looking at her through the window, but he gets back up. And before he can get to the door, she locks it. And then she leaves the house and it burns. So there go her parents. So we're down to one, two, three, four, six people have been killed on camera by her, two of her
She
parents. So you're starting to think
already.
the four that they mentioned on the news probably are her too. Well, at this point, she feels like she's got to run away, obviously, because there was evidence left at the sort of girlfriend's house, and the parents' house burns down. Who are they going to suspect?
Right. Massacre.
Yes, and she has a massacre, and she goes to the airport, and she's kind of like got a baseball cap. She's kind of like sort of in disguise, a hoodie, and the kind of disguise people think are foolproof in movies. And she notices a missing poster of that missing child they mentioned on the news. His name's Adrian. And they also show an age advanced recreation graphic. And age advanced, he looks a little androgynous. Again, there's no like dialogue, but you're gonna like follow her into this plan she's concocting in her head. So she goes to the restroom. She has like a bag with some stuff in it. She has Ix's tape, and she it's not like gauze, but like medical tape, kind of like big wide white panels, and she binds her breasts. Now by this time, she's still having these pains she had when she was with the woman, and uh, her stomach is really getting painful. And she's noticing as she starts to take off her clothes to bind her breast, her stomach is starting to get larger. This has been a couple of days, so she's obviously pregnant. But why would she be showing in a day or two? And
Hmm.
who's the father? Is it the car? That's the implication. Somehow the car impregnated her. So now we're
Oh
getting
my God.
now we're getting a demon seed territory. The movie where Julie Christie gets impregnated by the computer Proteus. So that's kind of what this reminded me of. Whenever actually, I always think of demon seed when I think of an inanimate object, so to speak, an inorganic object somehow impregnating a human.
Oh my
So
God.
Dean Koontz was definitely ahead of the curve on this concept, and that's seemingly is what is happening here. And she's starting to notice like this oily black substance coming out of her pubic region. Uh, and she's also kind of excreting. I don't mean out of her, rectum, but I mean like tears or a slight, slobber. Sometimes she's excreting or finding evidence of excretion of this oily substance instead of blood or tears. So is she
Man.
becoming an automobile? Is she becoming a metal thing? So now we're going in that direction. But this is it's like I said, there's no exposition. They're not beating you over the head with it. It's just like you decide what's happening. And if you've seen a lot of
Right.
horror and science fiction, you probably are figuring that's what's going to happen, right? She's going to
Hmm.
transform, whatever. Um, so that's where the body horror comes in, is this gradual transformation slash pregnancy. And how is she going to conceal it being a wanted criminal? So that's kind of the crux of her dilemma. Is she binds her breast, she binds her belly, and she's thinking about the way that boy looks. She cuts her hair really short, and another excruciating scene, very reminiscent of the movie Dogtooth by Yorgos Lanthimos. He's a big deal now, but that's actually still by far my favorite film of his. I think that was his first feature. And
Hmm.
Dogtooth, it's a bizarre kind of family that lives together, and they kind of live in their own like a reality, taking homeschooling to insane degrees. And there starts to become like incest and weird stuff. And the girl who's kind of the POV character in Dogtooth, at one point, I forgot why plot wise, but she like decides to smash this tooth that's bothering her or something.
Oh.
The tooth has some other kind of symbol. I guess it's some kind of mystical thing. Uh, Tens of Dogtooth, don't get mad at me. It's been a while since I've seen it. I've only seen it once, but I'll never forget. She slams her face into the sink and breaks that tooth. and it's just
Ah, I
like
can picture that.
it's, okay. So this is kind of what Alexia does. She slams her nose into it. So she does it the
Oh,
first time not real hard, and then she's like, "Oh!" This
oh yeah,
actress,
that would make me
this
cringe. That
actress is
would.
incredible at pain. Uh, and then finally she's like doing, and this is one take. She's like, the actress is like this, and then finally slam. Now, of course, I'm sure
Oh
she
my
doesn't hit the
God.
actual sink with the tip of her nose, but you hear that sound, and she recoils, and blood's popping out, and it's broken. So now her nose is broken, and she's actually quite satisfied with this.
Man.
She's just like, like looking in the mirror, like, oh, this is cool. Nobody's gonna recognize me. And so she's decided she is going to pretend to be a boy, and she's going to cosplay, so to speak, as the lost boy Adrian that we've been hearing about on the news,
Oh, that is so disturbing.
and so she's going to find uh, Adrian's father who put out the missing stuff. So she goes to the police, and she doesn't talk. I'm not sure how. Somehow she communicates this to the police. Maybe she talks to them. They don't really show this scene. It's like an ellipsis because she's then at the police station, and they've been informed, and they're talking to her father. I want to get his name right. He's a captain at a fire station, a fireman, and actually his house is built as an adjacent structure to the firehouse.
Hmm.
Vincent Lindon is the actor. He's a very cool actor. I'd seen him in this movie, Love Mustache, that was very strange. Actually, his character's first name is Vincent also. So Vincent, the captain, he's at the police station, and they're like, "Go say, do you want to do a DNA test?" And he's like, "No, I don't need a DNA test. I will know my son." So you kind of see what's
Oh my
coming, right?
God.
And so it's like one of those wishful thinking things. And so he meets Alexia now as Adrian and hugs her. I'm going to say her because she's still to us a female, um, but to the world she's this new person, and he's like crying and shit. Okay, so the basic idea that the police have somehow cobbled together is that obviously she was kidnapped 10 years ago, Adrian, and so what they're extrapolating, since she doesn't really talk, is that she's probably been kidnapped, held prisoner, tortured, raped, whatever.
Hmm.
So she's in a state of total trauma, post traumatic. She's not just post traumatic; she's in traumatic syndrome, and so she's mute, and at least for now. And of course,
Hmm.
she uses that to her advantage. No one will hear her voice, and so he takes her home, and as the movie unfolds, all kinds of little weird things happen along the way where it should start becoming obvious to him that it's not his son, but he has completely bought into this delusion because he wants it to be true. Not just because he loves and misses his son, but he's lonely. His wife left him. Their marriage ended after the child was abducted. That happens in real life a lot, sadly. And he needs somebody, and he's like a lonely guy. All he has is this fire station. All the guys in the fire station, the firemen, so it's all males, and they kind of worship him. And he actually runs it like a ship, like he is the captain, except to a higher degree. He actually tells them
Hmm.
things like, "I'm your god. I tell you what to do." But he's real calm. He's not like a demagogue. He's like,
Yeah.
God. I'm translating, and these guys they love him. And as the movie unfurls, there's a bit of, I don't even want to say subtext, but it's a bit of uh, indications that almost all the firefighters are in fact gay, and they don't have women. They all just kind of frolic together because they have these raves in the firehouse like once a week. They play this rave music super loud. They start dancing, and they're all like, almost all of them are like super buff, and they start taking off their
Ah.
shirts and dancing, and it's getting like,
Oh, that is
oh,
weird.
this is like Larry Clark bully scene. What the hell? I'm expecting somebody to give him a bill for dancing. And they're doing it, and I'm like, okay, well, that's cool. Well, this is kind of like the movie Corral that I reviewed on the channel with the plight of the gay man, of certain kinds of gay men in that situation where every man is gay. the feminine energy being brought into it doesn't always isn't always welcome. At least according to Jean Genet, and I take his word. He was a gay criminal, great author who wrote Corel, and I think this is the case. I mean, she's posing as a boy, but one of the guys does start to sense, you know, something different. Like it's probably not his son, and the other guys just think it's a very effeminate, slim gay boy. You know,
Mm.
and at first I thought they were making fun of him by saying it was gay. But then later when I start seeing these raves, I'm like, no, they're probably like happy he's gay." But one of the guys is like the one guy, he's like freaked out by him kind of. And he happens to be the one who's the closest to the captain. And really they have a somewhat tight relationship. He has almost like admiration, adulation of the son. I mean of the captain, Vincent. This man, he looks kind of Middle Eastern extraction, kind of olive skinned, and he's very suspicious of Adrian. And he tries a few times to talk to Vincent about it, and Vincent's like, "I do not talk about my son. You do not talk about my son. No one talks about my son." He just shuts him down every time. The guy's like, "But because he has this love, this kind of like father son love for Vincent, he kind of like is like, I guess I gotta just go along with this.
Mhm.
Uh, they take Adrienne along on a couple of missions. They save some old lady and her husband, and there's a fire, and then they do fire exercises. And in between that, Adrian does try to run away. He gets on a bus, and in the bus, we see a mirror of the fire station situation. We see she gets on the bus and she's the only female, though, she's posing as a boy. The other female is this just gorgeous black woman with long hair. And there's all these men in the back. And I think they're all either like, they're kind of like a gang. They're all like all military or they're all something. They're kind of like a mirror of the firefighters. They all have the same uniform or the same whatever, and they're all like super macho, except they're all heterosexual, well, ostensibly, or
Okay.
maybe overcompensatory heterosexual, homosexual, and they're all like saying these just the nastiest things you can possibly imagine to the black woman. She's not turning around at all. She's sitting across from Adrian, and they're just kind of looking at each other. And Adrian's looking at her like, "Hey, I'm not part of this, but I am a woman, so it's like I'm feeling this." And the black woman is so like oh my god, like she probably goes through this all the time. And the men are just, I can't say all the words they call her and it's things they want to do to her because we're not
True.
monetized, but if we were, we might be demonetized by a couple of these things if I said them verbatim. But
Right.
translated from the French, I mean, I'm reading the subtitles and it's like, God damn, this is like some hardcore shit they want to do to this woman. And they're not shy about it. And they're yelling, and they're calling her all these names, like you can probably guess, many four-letter names. And so it starts to kind of escalate, and then you don't know what's going to happen. And then you see the bus drive off, but Adrian's standing there. So it's just, I can't hack this. I hope that black woman did not get raped. Or if they
True.
did attack her, I hope it ended up like the movie Baby Blood we reviewed recently, where the woman, unleashes some kind of demonic power and kills them. Um,
Mm.
so she comes back to the house and he keeps asking her, "Why you keep running away?" Trying to bond with her. She won't talk. They have dinner. He just starts dancing and he's a trip. He's out there. And then he tries to dance with her and she kind of like, goes along with him, but she's like always like circumspect, always hyper vigilant. And fortunately she has a cover story that allows her to be this way, but she truly, is this way. And she comes home one day. They've been hanging out at the fire station, and she comes home and he said, "Mom's here," but that's Adrian's biological mother. And of course, when her eyes lock on Alexia slash Adrian, she knows it's not her son. And they try to have dinner, and she starts asking questions like she's going along with the whole thing. And then he's like, "She doesn't talk." She's like, "Well, can I ask him? Can I talk to him?" He's like, "Sure, whatever." You can tell there's just like this a lot of animosity between them, and most of it is because of the way they've respectively handled the child going away. Because she
Uh,
asked him, she's like, "How do you live in this house with his room being here?" And she says it almost like Alexia Adrian is not even there. I think as a way of saying I know it's you. She's like, how do you do this with his room? With his smell permeates the walls. Aren't you seized with grief? You should sell the house. He's like, leave me alone. I'm fine. And so Alexia goes to her room, and once again, she's having with these pain attacks, and uh, we see her several in these increments where she takes off her clothes, and of course, the suspense is Vincent going to walk in on her? Is somebody going to find out that she's a woman and pregnant? And so she does the whole thing, and she's got starting to get all these kind of like little scratches on her body, like little scratches where there's the black oil coming through, and welts on her back from how hard she's been binding herself. And then her stomach looks a little greasy, and then she starts itching it, scratching it, and the place where there's kind of itchy and there's like a little spot like that oil, and her
Hmm.
finger then goes into her skin, and she's like, "Oh my god!" But it doesn't bleed or hit any organs. What you glance at, which is later confirmed, is that it's like metal under there. So like this
Ah,
whole her whole stomach, womb, whatever, abdomen under her skin is like metal and it's starting to crack through her skin.
man, it's eating away from the inside of her.
Yeah, kind of. And so she's in agony, and as she's getting ready to get redressed, the mother just walks in. So she sees Alexia completely naked. You know, and she shuts the door, and then Alexia's in so much pain again, she falls to the ground. I mean, she literally can't take it. And some of the most this woman expresses pain better than almost any actress I've ever seen. So I've had chronic pain half of my life, and I got to say, this woman, and I've obviously I've never given had childbirth, but it's unimaginable, the kind of pain and the way she portrays it. Like, yeah, you're feeling it, and total physical acting. So she's naked on the ground, like begging this woman almost for help, and she wants to
Hmm.
take her hand, and the woman takes her hand, and she's like, "You poor pitiful thing." And you think, is she going to show some mercy, even though it's an imposter? And then she like grabs her, and she ain't going to show much mercy. She's like, "I don't know who you are. I don't care." She said, "But don't you ever hurt him. Take care of him. He needs someone. If not you, someone else. Stay with him." And then she leaves. The mom storms out of the house. We don't see her again. So that was a mixed bag of an encounter. At least the mother didn't like report it to Vincent or anyone else. So from then on, Vincent has a problem. He has a drug problem. He takes steroids. He injects them in his buttocks, and he's a muscular guy. I mean, the actor is pretty. I mean, actor's probably, I don't know how old. I'd say late 50s or 60. He's very very buff for his age, and naturally, I think, because I've seen him in another movie, and he never plays those kind of roles though. He doesn't play action heroes. He's just a guy
Hmm.
who's really in shape and really like works out. So he
Yeah,
probably worked out extra for this role. So he's buff. He's almost kind of ripped, but not totally ripped. But he's got
yeah,
muscles everywhere, and they're implying that he's trying to stay young by taking these steroids. And he like grabs a bar and he tries to do a whole thing where he pulls his whole body up, and it's hard for him, and he's angry and he's cursing. And at one point, he wants her help injecting him, and she's like totally like, like, she didn't say it. But she's like, hell no, I'm not going to do that. And then she does end up doing it, and it's just this weird push and pull. Like, he thinks that it's perfectly normal that she finds out he has this problem. She hasn't revealed her trauma to him, but he's totally open to her, or him, Adrian, because he wants to be close to him. So finally, Adrian gets more into this, realm of, uh, well, he says, I'm here to take care of you. You're not here to take care of me, Adrian. And he kisses his cheek. Now, this is a very French thing to do. But I'm thinking for 1 second, does he sense she might really be female? And if so, does he care? Does it even matter? Because like the mother said, no matter who he is, he needs her. You know, and so finally toward the end, there's a fire. they've been doing some simulations, and so they do kind of a controlled simulation behind the firehouse, and it's actually gets a little out of hand. The fire itself gets out of hand, and Vincent goes and gets this tank. Now, who's fighting it is Vincent and the young man who is sure now that Adrian is Alexia because he's been looking on the internet and doing face composites, Google image searches, and he thinks it is this wanted killer female, and he's threatened her, but she of course didn't answer, and so they're taking care of this fire, and watching from the fire truck is Adrian. So the fire starts to get out of control, and Vincent from the truck gets this tank.
Yeah.
I don't know enough about this process to tell you what's in the tank, and he hands it to the kid to hold. Like, I want you to do this. And Adrian witnesses this, and then Vincent goes in like to try to go into the fire and try to stop it. Then the guy goes the other direction to try to stop it, and there's a giant explosion.
Hmm.
And then Vincent is on the ground, and the fire is kind of dimming. There's these embers, and he picks himself up. He takes off his helmet, he takes off his jacket, and he staggers over to the fire truck. And well, the dude is dead. The man who suspected him is he's gone. There's no fanfare. There's no funeral shown, though they probably have.
Damn.
So was that on purpose? Because the guy was bugging Vincent? Did Adrian hand Vincent the wrong chemical? Did Vincent? I mean, what happened? They never solve it. But the problem, the thing is that problem is resolved, and for better or worse. And she decides to kind of spend the night in the fire truck. And when she's in the fire truck, she starts having this kind of attack again. And I am not sure. It seems like it's one of her attacks of incredible pain, and like these, birth pangs and things, her stomach. But I also got the impression upon watching it more than once that there is a sexual element to the way she's moving at her body, and that she might be having a little fling with the fire truck. They don't. It's not as elaborate as the first one with the car, but I kind of got that impression. That's why she's spending the night in the fire truck and why she's groaning like that. She is in pain, but I think she might be, you know. So she's already pregnant. So the fire truck cannot get her pregnant. So don't worry, audience. So the fire truck might be sterile for all we know. So she goes into the, firehouse, and again, there's all these kind of back and forth encounters and hints. And finally, he sees her in the bathroom with a towel, and she turns around, and he comes to, talk to her. He senses she's in pain, and he says to her just outright, he says, "I don't care who you are. You're my son. You'll always be my son." And he hugs her, and then the towel falls down. That's the first time he's seen her breasts bare and the bare pregnant belly. Well, everything bare. She doesn't have anything under the towel. And so get used to this actress being naked, and get used to her body becoming increasingly messed up. So
Okay.
this could turn you on, it could turn you off. Who knows? It could do both. Um, so he hugs her though. He puts the towel back on her really, really gingerly. And what I noticed is when he puts the towel on, he kind of pulls it like this. And so when he walks off, her breasts are actually kind of sticking out. She's not like, and through the towel, they're big, and because of her pregnancy, and it's like, oh wow, because she's kind of in a way reclaiming her femininity on a certain level, because she doesn't
Hmm.
have to hide anymore. So then they have a rave at the firehouse, and they want her to. They all start cheering, and they want her to go on top of the fire truck and dance. And it's like this hardcore, just crazy disco rave. The dudes are all dancing around. I mean, there's no sex going on, but definitely it seems like a hot, soft R version of a scene from Cruising, except instead of dressed like leather men, they're all dressed like firemen, and they're like banging their bodies, and it's fun though. It's funny. This is a very queer friendly movie. It actually got nominated for the Queer Palm at Cannes. It didn't win. It did win. It did win the Palme d'Or at Cannes. She's the second female director to ever win the Palme d'Or. So this movie was
Impressive.
yeah, this movie was a major art house hit. You know, I don't know if I think it made a good bit of money because it's probably at a low budget, but I wouldn't say it wasn't a huge hit. But as far as like where it needed to go, like Europe and around the world, it got huge recognition, especially after that award. It was nominated for about 25 other awards, and it won a very small handful. I think Agatha won one acting award, Vincent won one acting award. The cinematographer won an award. It won a best
Okay.
film and another thing. But I'm talking about all worldwide. It's like the Austin Critics Association, the Critics Association, they're in different states. And then like the
Hmm.
César Award. Ironically, the César, the mainstream French Oscars, it nominated for everything but won nothing. So essentially where we're at is she does this dance on top of the fire thing and she starts kind of dancing like she did on the car. She doesn't like hump the fire thing, but she's standing up, but she's still doing very erotic dances, very pelvic stuff. And she's probably in pain, but she seems very transported, like mentally, like by the music and getting back into that groove of using her body for something fun rather than being in anguish all the time with it. And um, at one point, shortly before that, she did smile a couple of times with him, which I was like, oh my God, it's the first time she smiled. She sort of almost cracked a smile when she first made out with that girl, but that's like the only time since then. And not that I blame her. Uh, and he comes in, and he sees the party. At first, he's like, "Everybody, come on, get back to work." And then he stops, and then he sees her, and she's still enveloped in this. And you have to kind of read his expression. It's like he's turned on, I think, but he's repulsed
Okay.
by the fact he's turned on, which makes sense.
Interesting.
I mean, wouldn't you be if you were like turned on by
Yeah.
that, but then you're like, wait a minute, this was my son. I thought it was a boy, but is it
Right.
safe to be turned on? Am I okay? What am I? Am I gay? Am I an incest of just what am I?
It's very scary to think of. It's scary to think about.
Yeah, there's all these layers of weird, and he conveys them really mostly through his physical acting as well, his face. He's kind of, I think he's put out a signal like rejecting her, like don't bother me for a while. Like he acts like he's disgusted when he storms out of that. So he goes to
Hmm.
bed. He's falling asleep with his cigarette or cigar, and he's reading. So a fire starts on his stomach. Meanwhile, she is having this massive, like it's probably like the equivalent of her waters breaking. She's having this massive pain, like um, contractions, like a pregnant contractions. Again, she wanders out of the house because she's been in bed. No clothes, as usual. She wanders around the yard. She's been in the fire station overnight after the dance. And I don't know, she might have gotten with the fire truck again. You leave that to your imagination. But now she's like going into labor basically, and she staggers over to his adjoining house. Obviously, probably wary because he seems angry at her. And so he manages to put the fire out on himself. And then she comes in, and of course she's naked and she's like in pain and she's holding her stomach. And he's like, "What are you doing? What are you doing here?" And then he kind of doesn't know what to think, and she like curls up on him. She puts her head kind of right about here, and so this is kind of the weird area when you're snuggling. Like they put them on their chest. It's like you're cuddling them. You put it lower than this, then there might be something else going on. So you're like, what's she gonna do? And she just starts to kiss his stomach, and she says,
Oh
she
my.
says, "Je t'aime," and then, I love you, and he's like, "Je t'aime aussi," and she gradually kind of comes on top of him, sort of, and it's painful because it's hard for her to move, and he's like kind of like he's like this, he's like, "What the hell do I do?" And she tries to kiss him, and he's kind of like this, and finally they kiss on the lips, and this is where I would say this is a love story. Against all odds, crazy as it is, insane as it is, I think it's a very sad and powerful love story. And because they only have each other now. And
Yeah.
so he kisses her, and then he freaks out again. Can't handle the truth. So he jumps out of the bed and he's like, "I'm leaving." He runs to the door. He's all disgusted. He's like, "Leave me alone." And then she finally starts talking, more regularly to him. I mean, she's already said, "Je t'aime." So she's like, "Please come back. I don't have anybody. I need help. I'm in pain." And so you finally see her totally vulnerable, this crazy killer. And she's just overwhelmed, and so he hesitates, and it keeps going back and forth, and there's this tension there for several seconds, and you're not sure what he's going to do. But this is where I kind of feel like also, yes, it's a love story. He comes back, it's almost like the arc of a of a romantic comedy, but completely deviated and perverted,
Hmm.
And I don't mean that as a diss. I just mean, subverted, probably is a better word.
Yeah.
And he comes back, and he's not coming back to like continue making out with her. He comes back to pulls her legs apart, and somebody watching might think that, but he pulls her legs apart, and then he's like, push, push, and he's gonna deliver the child. And
Oh.
I wonder if A, he delivered Adrian, his real son, or was there when it happened with his wife, or I wonder if that's what it reminds him of. You know, it's like because now he's lost his son again, but here comes this new life into his life.
Yeah.
Um, and so the sadness is, will he have all of it? Will they have some strange, bizarre family, or is there a trade-off? And unfortunately, there is a trade-off, And Alexia passes, and Vince is very sad. He tries to, give her resuscitation. She's gone, and he takes the baby in this swaddling um, covers, and you don't see the baby. You just hear it crying a lot. Like she says before she expires, "Is he okay?" And he said he kind of hesitates, and he says yes. And yeah, the baby is okay. It's alive. It's breathing. It's crying. But what condition is it in? And so he
Mhm.
lays down with the baby, and he's cradling it. And eventually, he sort of kind of pulls the covers back, uh, brings the baby up here, and you can kind of start to see what the baby is. And of course, this is all a special effect, a practical effect, not a digital effect. And I guess they made the baby and made it breathe and move around. You don't see its face, but as the camera pans back and it's kind of crying and undulating, uh, it's got this metal spine all the way down. It's very
Oh my
Giger-esque kind of
God.
metal, some steel spine. And then you see it turn its head away from him to rest. And you don't see its face, but you see that side of the head, and it's here. And it's a metal plate, round metal plate. It doesn't have the scarring his mom had, though. It's like born with it. And he said, I'm here. I'm here. I'm here. I'm not going away. And it's like everybody cries. So that's the end of the movie. This powerful music comes on, and it's like, sorry for all the spoilers, but if you're watching the
You're
show, you
good.
you know what we're about, right? Um, it's one of those movies that you've been on this whole journey with this very strange character, forced to identify with her and see the world through her point of view, whether you agree with her choices or not, to where you become emotionally attached. And then when you meet Vincent, you end up becoming attached to him. And then you become attached to the idea of how are these people going to relate? Are they going to continue this father son fraud? Now that he knows she's a woman, are they going to have some kind of romance? And I think the takeaway is now he has a son. He has a son back. That's the way I read it. Is that baby is now his son. And when he says, I'm here, it's like, okay, now to me, it's like a redemption for his character for all the years of pain he went through, and through the confusion of her disguising herself as Adrian, is now he can raise the son to be whatever he wants it to be, though obviously he's going to probably have to raise it in secret. But and who knows, maybe he'll name it Adrian. Uh, maybe like Rosemary's Baby was named Adrian. But
Right.
it's a powerful movie. The music's powerful. There's a lot of really powerful like electronic and symphonic elements as the movie goes toward the end. They're almost like of an epic quality, but they're not ostentatious. It's not like a John Williams score where there's some da 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 kind of thing fanfare. It's nothing like that. It's very much in the darker side, but obviously a much more lavish musical production than you would expect. So I think Julia was able to either raise a bit more money than in the past, and or just was really good with production values. The production values of this movie are absolutely off the charts. So I
Nice.
highly recommend it. Uh, Elijah, you must see it as soon as possible.
Absolutely.
And I think you'll like it. And it is unique. It's one of a kind, I think. There are people I've known who really disliked it. Um, Nobody I've talked to disliked it could quite articulate what they disliked about it. And that's not a slam to them. I didn't keep the conversation going long enough. But one thing they all noted was that, yes, this actress was totally committed to this performance. You know,
Nice.
they inhabited this character to an insane degree, kind of like a Johnny did in Possession. Like, oh my God, this next level.
Yeah.
So anyway, we're going to wrap up. That is a strange love story that I have been wanting to talk about for a while, and we will be back soon. And soon we'll be wrapping up this whole series. In the meantime, Elijah had something he wanted to talk to the audience about before we go.
Like, comment, subscribe always.
Like, comment, subscribe. Thank you for watching, everybody. We love you.
And it's true that we cannot see that far behind. If we looked all the way in the past, we'd go blind. In the night, from the stars as they've all lived their lives, and the light that they gave as they burned and then died.